Perfect. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome students. Thank you so much for taking time this evening and joining us on this alumni panel. Again, my name is Keely Ashman. I'm the Assistant Director for Corporate and Alumni Relations in the Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at the University of Illinois. What we're going to do is we're going to quickly go around to the panelists and have them introduce themselves. And if they could let us know what year they graduated, what their special or their primary, I'm just drawing a blank, my brain just stopped working, your primary, and where you're working now. That would be helpful for our students to kind of know where some of our alumni on the call are based out of. And first, Becky, I'll have you go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we'll go to the alumni.
Sounds great. I'm Becky Stillwell. You received a confirmation email from me yesterday, and I'm the academic advisor in civil and environmental engineering. Some of you have probably previously been on some civil chats in the last month that I've hosted, and along with some current students. And if not, we have a couple more coming up in April on the 7th and the 21st that you could sign up for. Thank you.
Dana, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, I am Dana Mehlman, and I graduated with my bachelor's in '99. My primary area of study was environmental engineering, and my secondary area of study was geotechnical engineering. I then actually, right after my bachelor's, I stayed on for my master's at Illinois. And I got my master's actually in geotechnical engineering. I practiced for close to a decade, and then I actually left engineering to go to law school, which I graduated from in 2010. And I have been practicing environmental law and dabbling a bit in construction law ever since.
Adam, you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Adam Blumstein. I graduated in 2013 with bachelor's in civil engineering. My primary was geotechnical engineering, but I didn't really stay in geotechnical engineering very long. I moved into water, so right now I am a water resources engineer. I work for an engineering consulting firm called Burns and McDonnell up in the Chicago office in downtown Chicago. And also a member of the Young Engineers Division, which is a young alumni group, which has started pretty recently that Katie's also a part of. Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you guys and answer any questions you might have.
Katie, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Katie Bell, and I graduated from the College of Civil Engineering in 2007. My primary was water resources. My secondary was environmental, and then my job ended up being in transportation. So I currently work at the Cook County Department of Transportation and Highways up in Chicago.
Mike, you want to go?
Sure. Hi, everybody. Mike Vitale. I got my bachelor's in '82 in construction management and structural. Went back and got my master's in '84 in geotechnical. And I now dig holes in the ground as a tunneler for Mott McDonald based out of Cleveland, Ohio.
Perfect. And last but not least.
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Ugwem Eneyo. My primary was in environmental engineering, secondary and water resources. I finished with my bachelor's in 2013. And after that, I actually went to go work for some time in the oil and gas industry out in Texas and doing some projects all over the world. I then actually went back shortly after to get my master's and work on my PhD, also in civil and environmental engineering, but focused on energy at Stanford. I left the program with my advisor. We started an energy technology company headquartered in the Bay, and I've been working on that since. Still involved with the community, mostly through Knights of St. Patrick, which was an award I received while at Illinois.
Cool.
Fantastic. And John, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm John Popovich. I'm a professor here, but I'm also the director of undergraduate studies, so in charge of basically all the stuff. And I work with Becky to handle all the scheduling and all the other issues that come up.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again to everyone for jumping on the call. What we're going to do is we're going to start with just a couple prearranged questions for our alumni and hope to get the conversation started that way. But if at any time any of the students have a question or a follow-up question, just go ahead and post it in the chat and we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll just be really fluid. If you feel comfortable to unmute yourself and ask a question, or to start your video when you ask your question, we'll just keep it really casual and loose. So the first question for our alumni is, if you had to name just one thing you gained from your education at CEE at Illinois that has most benefited you in your career, what would you name?
So I'll start with this one. And I will say that it was the connections that I made within the department, whether it be in the administrative offices, in the front office, or with professors. It was one of my professors who basically got me my first job out of school. It was one of my professors who, when I decided to go back to law school, wrote me my recommendations. And, you know, 20 some years later, I still keep in touch with my professors. I'm, you know, still friendly with them. And those connections have been really important throughout my career.
Yeah, one thing I would say, you know, living in Chicago, you know, there's a huge network of civil engineering alumni. And so, you know, what I've kind of found, you know, the fact that I went to U of I, there's so many people in the, you know, industry that also went to U of I, and it's always served as like a great, you know, natural conversation starter. And, you know, given the great reputation of the school, you know, when you meet people and are kind of, you know, talking about history and they know that you went to U of I, you know, it kind of gives them, you know, confidence in your abilities right away. And, you know, you're always able to connect with people. So, you know, I've always just kind of felt, you know, the reputation of the school, as well as, you know, the big network of people, you know, has provided me with a lot of benefits, you know, at every stage of my career.
That's really true in my profession. There's something called the Illinois Mafia in the tunneling business. And it's not just Chicago. No matter where I go, anywhere in the world, the top people in the tunnel field are invariably Illinois graduates. And I still keep in touch with a lot of my professors who weren't just academics, but were active consultants when I was going to school. And so probably the greatest thing I got when I was going to school was the fact that 9 times out of 10, instead of teaching class, they'd come in and give us case histories of their consulting work in the industry, which in fairness, it was part of the curriculum, but it was really, really interesting to hear these practitioners. On the weekend, they would be in Pakistan on Tarbella Dam, and on Monday morning, they'd be in teaching you from that practical case history. It was really exciting.
Yeah, if I'd add, there's a theme that we're already seeing with the network and the faculty and the relationships formed.
Yeah.
But specifically for me, there was a period of time where I knew I loved what I was studying, but I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do with it out of school. And the fact that faculty, and this is me having studied at 2 different universities, the faculty at Illinois, I never had an issue just walking into somebody's office and being like, can you explain this to me? I'm interested in this. What do careers look like? What are opportunities I can be tapping into? And those things were really tangible. I remember thinking I wanted to work abroad, and I had talked to one of my professors, and he's like, well, we have undergraduates come with us to do research in Tanzania program. You can participate in that. And that was so transformative for my trajectory thereafter. And to kind of show how that manifested when I went to grad school at a different university, when I go to, ironically, as a handful of us that went to that school, when I go to faculty office hours, people are always shy to actually go and engage with the professors. And it would be me and a few other U of I alum who actually were the ones like, why are you guys scared? We're going to talk to the professors. I mean, we were used to that. And so that just really, in so many ways, manifested in my future career.
Yeah, I'll just add real quick. I mean, I think everyone else is probably has similar thoughts to everyone else, but personally for me, my current job, so I worked for another company for about 2.5 years and then moved to Burns and McDonnell. And it was really through connections that I had made with people at the university and in some of my classes. And they helped me to get my foot into the door, to get that interview and to talk with the right people, and then ultimately get an offer and move to my current company. So I would say that the Illinois connection and the people that I met definitely will help you out in whatever you pursue after your postgraduate.
Thanks, everyone. All right, next question. What advice can you give to the students who are interested in engineering, but not 100% sold on civil and environmental engineering?
I can jump in there. That was me. That was me. And it wasn't me just going into the program. It was me probably all the way through the end for about 4 years. I mean, I loved what I was studying. I just wasn't sure what exactly such a big decision. You're trying to think what you're going to do for the rest of your life. But a lot of the principles you were learning throughout CEE program can translate and be relevant in a lot of careers. I mean, we have an environmental lawyer on the call. I'm a tech entrepreneur now. We have people working in all kinds of domains, and you can go to grad school, etc. And so I would basically say, think about things that you're passionate about and the industries around that and what you can do with it, because I was really passionate about energy, infrastructure, the environment, and there's a lot you can do with that if you fundamentally understand environmental engineering, water resources engineering. I wasn't going to pigeonhole myself into something that was maybe too specific and I wouldn't be able to kind of leverage thereafter.
Yeah, I mean, the greatest, I forget where I read this, but if you're interested in helping humanity and helping the environment, I think the greatest contribution to human health and welfare comes from civil engineering and just something as simple as sanitation, sewer tunnels and that kind of thing. There's just so many different things you can do in civil engineering, environmental engineering to help the environment. And I know that's a real big thing these days, as some have already said.
One of the other things I'll add, actually, I'm going to add 2 things. The first is, if you really know you want to do engineering, but you're not really sure because, coming into it, what's the difference between, an industrial engineer and a mechanical engineer and a civil engineer. And I will say, so the curriculum for your freshman year for all engineering is going to be, I'd say like 95% exactly the same. There might be one class you take that's going to be specific to civil engineering. The benefit of that is, you enter into civil engineering because that's where you think you want to go, but you have classes with people who are going to be, pursuing electrical engineering or mechanical engineering, and you can talk to the other people in your classes, and it may serve to either reinforce, oh no, this civil engineering, this is what I want to do, or in those discussions you might decide you want to veer in another direction. If you think you're interested in civil, I'd say go for it. The wonderful thing about civil engineering is that, as has already been said, you're not going to be pigeonholed. Also, the way our department, and I say that as a alum, I still feel it's mine. But the way our department works is very different from how a lot of other departments work, in that you're not going to get a pigeonholed view. They work very hard to really integrate the different disciplines throughout civil engineering, because when you get out into the real world, that's how it works. If you're a structural engineer, there are going to be geotechnical and environmental and construction aspects to everything that you do. If you're a transportation engineer, there are going to be geotechnical and environmental and construction aspects to everything that you do. These days, energy, it's a part of infrastructure, it's a part of environment, all of these different aspects in the real world are intertwined. And one of the really great things that Illinois does well, and that some other programs don't do, is introducing students to that like real world integration of, how things work, so that, when you graduate as, a geotechnical engineer, you understand, where geotechnical engineering fits in the grand scheme of the project that you're working on. And the integration that the department has done, and the specialty areas that like they interweave with different disciplines. And it's really a fantastic and amazing approach to teaching of civil and environmental engineering.
Anybody else want to add to that, or should I move on to the next question? Everyone good? Yep. Okay. All right. Next question. The University of Illinois has more than 1,000 registered student organizations, and CEE at Illinois has at least 30 that are geared towards civil and environmental engineers. What extracurricular activities benefited you the most, and why?
Does the mug club count? No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
And for those of you who may be questioning, that is associated with a particular drinking establishment in Champaign.
Sorry about that. I couldn't resist.
I was going to add, and I don't know, Becky's probably pretty familiar with, we had started, it was like a CEE student group that worked with students and helped to organize different events. This was started, I think, like my freshman or sophomore year, and I joined. I was able to network with different students across different, from freshmen up to seniors. It was really cool to meet seniors and learn from them about what they're doing in the department, classes they're taking, get some guidance. And we also helped to organize different networking events centered around the like a pre-career fair networking event, which was really cool and gave us some kind of insider access to some of the recruiters and different people. And that was a really cool group, and also got a chance to work closely with Becky and get to know her better and some of the other advisors. And I mean, that was within the department, and that was definitely one of the really cool opportunity to help kind of start a group. And definitely gained a lot from that.
Yes, and Adam's referring to the Civil Student Committee. The name
Sorry, I think I botched the name. I couldn't even remember.
No, it may have changed since you were part of it too. So
Okay.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think for me, what I was admittedly not very involved in many student organizations, when I was in school, but, actually, one thing, I was part of a sorority and, U of I does have a large Greek system for anyone that's interested in that. And, I did kind of like, it was just an outlet, not necessarily academic related, but I made a lot of friends, through that and people that I'm still friends with today. So, given, the number of organizations, it's just, I think there's something for everybody. And, you will definitely, whatever hobby you have, no matter how obscure, there's probably a club for it at U of I, and you will find your people and you will find, be able to make those connections. And that's what I think is great with the, the student organizations. They're just so variable, and you can really find whatever, you're looking for.
I love that Katie actually you stole my thunder a little, because I was going to say I was a member of the Greek system, which for me served as like a kind of nice outlet, but also a good number of students in my classes were also in the system, and so we kind of would group together and have study groups, which was always very nice. I will say though, while being in the Greek system kind of served as an outlet for engineering, I was also very involved with the concrete canoe team, which was a subset of the American Society of Civil Engineers. Yeah, that corn cob, that was my canoe. It's hanging on the wall in Newmark, and I like cry every time I see it. It is a design project sponsored by the American Society of Civil Engineers, and the students design, create a concrete mix, build, and then race their canoes. And that was kind of my outlet from the Greek system. And truth be told, the friends of mine from undergrad who I'm still friends with today all came from that group. It was a lot of hard work. This was before everybody had access to the building. We were given keys to the building so that we could come in obscure hours, and we would be working in the building until 2 or 3 in the morning, on this project. And it was definitely one of the most fulfilling activities that I did when I was at Illinois, to the point where I still, just have such pride in having participated in it. And there are so many groups that are just like that. And as Katie said, because there are so many options, no matter what you're involved, interested in, and you might have to look a little bit, but if you're interested in something, you will be able to find others, and likely a club already exists for what you want to do, which is really very cool.
Just a quick addition. I looked down my nose at a lot of those organizations. It was a big mistake because it's so important for networking to join student chapters of some of the professional organizations. We try to give money to students, and a lot of students aren't active in the organizations, and a lot of the scholarship money goes unused. There's so many the friends, as Dana said, that you meet in these student like ASCE or UCA student chapters, you'll have for the rest of your life. They'll help you get jobs. Again, we give away scholarships. We give away trips to professional conferences. So there's so many opportunities. It's not just a club. It's really important for your education and your career. So if you do get a chance, whether you do it at school or right after, I'd strongly recommend, don't do what I did. Join one as soon as possible.
I'll also just chime in quickly. I was involved with some student organizations like National Society of Black Engineers and Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, and quite involved with the Moral Engineering Program, which does a lot of work with minority and underrepresented groups. But I also really enjoyed getting outside of the engineering campus and was involved with student government throughout the time there. So that community is really useful, especially just relationships thereafter, but also, just going through something with other people is really important.
Yeah, and I'll just add that, as everyone else said, there is an outlet for everybody. There's both within engineering and outside engineering. So you'll find your group no matter where you are. Students in our department are always connecting with others. I've connected current students with alumni and, and different things. So there's always a good connection when you're in our department. It's just making, seeking things out for yourself to see what's going to be the best fit for you, what organization fits best, or, that type of thing.
Yep.
Looks like we have a question in the chat. It's kind of a multi-question question. How would a student at U of I best determine which area of civil to go into, which is a great question. And what are the characteristics or passions of a great civil engineer? And then on the flip side of that, what are some of the characteristics of people who go into civil but probably shouldn't?
That's a great question.
There is a lot there. I'll try and take a stab at some of it, and then if I miss anything, I know everyone else will chime in. But I would say when I came into civil engineering, I didn't really know what area, especially I wanted to go into. And as I got into working on some of my internships after my sophomore and junior year, I kind of got pushed into geotechnical engineering by some of the people that I was interning with, who were actually also University of Illinois graduates, and I was interning out in New Jersey. So that kind of says how far the network stretches all over the country. But so I would say you don't have to know what you want to do. I think civil engineering is so broad. It covers so many different opportunities and backgrounds, and clearly on the call we have people from all different backgrounds, and also people like myself who studied something and then ended up doing something else. You don't really know until you're working in whatever you're doing, that, in my opinion, that you really know what you want to do. So I think having a broad skill set, which is what the university and the program teaches you, is really valuable to when you start working, to see what you really want to do and what you're passionate about. And that's how I fell into the water and figured out that I really enjoyed working on water projects. I think as far as the second question related to characteristics and passions, I think Mike alluded to this before about someone who really wants to help society with problems. Really, a problem solver is what an engineer is. So, and really any problem you can think of, an engineer's, well, especially civil engineer, we touch so many different things. So, in my area of focus, I'm looking at flooding and stormwater management. But I mean, there's so many different problems that we're trying to solve. So someone who's creative and a problem solver, and someone who wants to help people and also work with people, I would say.
Yep.
If you don't like working with other people, and if you're not a good communicator, I would say it may not be a great avenue to go along. But I don't know, I probably missed, there's so many different attributes, and civil engineering is really broad, and it's a great field to be in. And I think it will continue to be in the future.
It's an excellent answer.
I would just, sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, I would piggyback off what Adam said, and it also resonates with something Mike said earlier, which was like, if you're questioning whether you want to be a civil engineer, I think one thing you can ask yourself is, do you think you'd be fulfilled with a career where you're constantly elevating the standard of living for people? It's really this like, you know, I have friends who did chemical, electrical, and it's not to dog any other discipline, but there's something really fulfilling about seeing something come to life and building something that's actually impacting somebody. Even if you're working on a small part of it, you can see how it's influencing people's lives in such meaningful ways. And so it's like, there's something really fulfilling with that. And so if part of your vision for your career is to make sure that like you go to work and you feel good about what you're doing, then I think civil is one of those disciplines where if you're doing it well and honest, you really will feel that way. And it's not to say you can't get it with another career, but it's just so essential and like the foundation of being like a civil or environmental engineer.
Yep.
I'll just add one thing very quickly. In terms of deciding what area you want to go into, that is not something you have to declare when you first enter. And one of the great things is, I'm not 100% sure, but I know I had to go to classes for 5 of the different like main disciplines. And so they started my sophomore year. My freshman year, I had made some friends and they all knew that they wanted to do structural engineering. And so I said to them, well, I'll take structural engineering with you first semester if you take environmental engineering with me second semester. Sounded like a really great deal. I very quickly found out that structural engineering was not a good area for me to go into. But that's part of it. It's not just figuring out what's best, it's also figuring out what's not best. Of course, then second semester came along and exactly 0 of my friends joined me in environmental engineering. So just goes to show you how great my friends were. But nonetheless, I took that environmental engineering and then I, ran with it. So the program itself integrates kind of that evaluating all the different areas, learning about the different areas. I actually think freshman year, there is a program that's kind of like an introduction to all the areas so that you are making, more of an, educated decision. But, as Adam said, even if you make the decision, it's not, something that sticks with you for life because you do still have that key background.
And you can change your mind during your bachelor's pretty easily. And like you, Dan, I started out with a bachelor's in structures and realized that I was bored out of my mind working and went back for a master's. And a lot of the fields in civil are complementary too. So even if you start in one and wind up doing something else, you'll find that your training in the other aspect is nothing but a boon and quite a help in your career.
Mike, that leads perfectly into my next question.
Uh-oh.
Compared to your peers from other civil engineering programs, do you feel more prepared than them when you entered the job market? And do you feel like having Illinois on your resume helped you get hired?
Oh God, yes. And I think everyone's hinted at this, and I did earlier, especially in my field, and geotechnical. And Adam, you can vouch for this as well. Geotechnical was almost invented at Illinois by Peck and Terzaghi back in the 40s. Illinois alums are so ingrained in the profession and in my specialty in particular that it was such a huge boon The employers know what they're getting when they hire an Illinois graduate. They know who their teachers are. They know the curriculum. They know the courses you've taken. So they know your level of training. They know what to expect. And that's such a huge and important thing when you're hiring. So I'll stop at that. But yeah, it was hugely, hugely important. Probably more than it should be, but.
Yeah, I think, in terms of, getting jobs and everything, one thing that the civil engineering department does that a lot of, other colleges don't do across the country, or we do have our own dedicated job fairs. So, in the Crane Bay, it was in the Crane Bay, at least when I was there, you'll have all the companies there, all the big national companies, and then smaller local companies, hundreds of firms come with, with the sole purpose of finding, civil engineering grads. I personally had gotten internships through the job fair. I also got my first job through the job fair, just going up to a booth and just meeting somebody. So, when I was starting to work, I did feel like, in terms of at least, getting a job, I felt, like we did have that advantage at Illinois just because of, the targeted recruiting that happens there. And, the fact that, we do have our own unique job fair, at a lot of other, there's other job fairs in the college, and where it's open to everybody, so there's all kinds of companies there, whatever. Like, I think it's just great that, U of I has kind of, civil engineering, it has its own job fair.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I am kind of skipping ahead, sorry, Keely, but so it used to be that there was one engineering job fair on campus, and it was sponsored by the College of Engineering. And actually, when I was a student there, some of the feedback that the civil engineering department was receiving was, I go to this, and it was huge, hundreds of companies. The entire student union was full for days on end. And like 3 companies would be interested in hiring civil engineers from all disciplines, and it was a little disheartening, to go from booth to booth to booth, and they just wanted to hire chemical engineers and electrical engineers. And so the civil engineering department decided that they were going to host their own. And I will say, our job fair is, from an employer's point of view, actually very difficult to get into. Every slot that is possible to be filled is filled every year because companies want to hire University of Illinois graduates. And it really is an amazing thing when you walk into, so the Crane Bay is a huge open bay in the Newmark Engineering Building, and you walk in and it's just full of companies and their booths, and they just spend the whole day talking to students and getting resumes. And I want to also hit on a question Jonathan put forth, because it kind of goes with that. In addition to the department offering, these spring and fall job fairs, the Civil Engineering Alumni, or the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering Alumni Association sponsors, I want to say 6 of 9 sessions in a series that is called the Backpack to Briefcase series. And the sessions that are done include, what kind of things can I put on my resume? How do I get involved in different clubs on campus to have something to put on my resume? How how do I write a resume? And for that session, we actually have, well, this past year we did it virtually, but generally we have alumni come and do a one-on-one interaction with the students, giving them specific advice on their resumes. We have a session on interviewing. We have a session on, you know, what your first job might be like. And again, we bring back alumni to kind of talk about whether they're in the public sector or whether they're in the private sector and what their work is like. And then we have a new session, which actually is led by the Young Engineers Division, which talks about, you know, the importance of continuing education and the importance of networking. And we've gotten, every year, we put on these sessions for the students. We get hundreds of students showing up for them, and we take feedback from the students. We revamp the program based upon what the students want and feel that they need. But it really is a very powerful program to give students, you know, those skills that they need to get the jobs when people come hiring.
I'm going to add my experience here, and I'll be brief. Yeah, I came in, it was a company, energy company from Texas that was recruiting at Illinois. And if you're familiar with Texas, they love their schools out here. They think they're better than anywhere else. And so it was so interesting that they were sending teams to U of I. So when I started my job in Texas, everybody was from Texas. And then you had a whole network of Illinois engineers, you know, amongst, you know, defending ourselves amongst the Texans. But it's because really they knew the quality of engineers they were getting. So my sophomore year, I got an internship paid with a company in Texas. They brought me here. I spent every summer interning with them. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to grad school or what I wanted to do. They hired me after undergrad, worked there. And it was really all through actually Illinois alum who are coming back to recruit. But that's not unique to me. A lot of my friends had similar experiences where they were getting good, solid paid internships. And I mentioned something at the top of the call about Illinois engineers being able to access their faculty and professors and advisors and ask for help. That's a skill that people don't really realize translates when you go to work. You had all these engineers that went to schools where they didn't know how to ask questions. They were scared of their professor. They never sat down. They didn't talk to advisors. So they'd go to work and they don't know how to collaborate or talk to people. And so not a case for Illinois engineers. Yeah, so, or for most of us at least.
Good point.
And I guess the only thing I would add is I've also recruited recently at the University of Illinois at some of the career fairs, and I've seen a lot of strong resumes. And my group, specifically in Chicago, has hired over the last few years like 4 or 5 engineers from the University of Illinois civil engineering group, in addition to all the other electrical and mechanical other engineers we've hired from U of I. So yeah, employers are always looking for engineers from Illinois. It speaks a lot, it speaks highly, and all across the country, not just like everyone is saying, it's not just in Chicago, it's all across the country, everywhere. Illinois engineers definitely stand out, and resume typically speaks for itself.
Marco, did you have a question?
I did. First of all, thanks to all of you for doing this. And U of I is obviously extremely impressive, and all of you are extremely impressive. This is a question from a dumb finance parent who doesn't know anything at all about engineering. So the question is, if you had a daughter or a son or a niece or a nephew that was asking you, you know, hey, I've gotten into UIUC, obviously for civil engineering, but I've also gotten into UW-Madison for half the cost, or Purdue for 70% of the cost, or Texas A&M for the same cost, or Berkeley for more. would it make more sense to go to UW and, do undergrad there and then go for a master's at Illinois? Or it seems to me that Illinois is clearly a tier above UW-Madison. In the world of engineering, is it enough of a difference to justify, spending $100,000 versus $200,000?
Can I tell a story? When I was going to Illinois, I just hated Ohio State with a passion. And now I live in Ohio, ironically. But my son came to me. I was pushing him to go to Illinois. He wanted to be a material science engineer. And I shouldn't be saying this, and I apologize to John and Keely, but he came to me and he said, "Dad, it's X dollars to go to Ohio State, but it's 2.5X to go to Illinois because I'm a non-resident." So I said, "Go Buckeyes." and he went to Ohio State, and he to answer your question, he then went on to get a master's and a PhD at 2 different schools. And I mean, it's an individual question every parent has to ask, but money is a real thing. So, in my case, I chose to have him go to a good school, a less expensive school, and he continued his education at even better schools as he went on to get his master's and PhD. When I'm hiring, if I'm hiring a student, we typically hire master's and PhD students, and it's not as important where they got their bachelor's, and in a lot of cases, it's good to get that difference in perspective from different schools. So I think even at Illinois, they don't like you to get your bachelor's, master's, and PhD. If you're going to be academic, they'd rather have you get degrees, I think, at different schools to get that crossbreeding and cross-pollination. So with that, I'll shut up, Marco, but that's a great question.
So I would add to a financial aspect. So I was an out-of-state student, and I grew up in New Jersey, and I was fortunate to get a scholarship for out-of-state students and several other scholarships during my time at University of Illinois through various different organizations, and the department has a lot of different scholarships too. I even got a study abroad scholarship, which was one of the reasons I was between University of Illinois and University of Michigan. And I really liked both schools and on the fence. Both had strong programs, ended up choosing Illinois, partially because of financial aspects, and they gave me money to study abroad. It was a great program. Obviously, it's a personal decision, but there definitely are ways you can find scholarship money, and that Becky and Keely and John could show you some of the different scholarships and opportunities. Some of that is before, or I guess during application, before you're there. Some of it is when you're on campus during the program. But yeah, there are ways to find money. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of really solid civil engineering programs. I work with people from all over. I went to school in a lot of different places. So yeah, in the end, I think, like Mike said, it's kind of a personal family decision.
Definitely a personal decision, but I'll just chime in here. This is anecdotal, this isn't by numbers. When I left U of I, first of all, is really a world-class university. So when I go abroad, people know U of I engineering. They've probably, more often than not. So I think that brand is useful. Secondly, when I ended up going to grad school and I ended up at Stanford, U of I had a major presence there. And I can't say that's by accident, like U of I grads, especially from CEE. And so, I mean, it wasn't like here or there, every class I was seeing like a nice handful of U of I students. So I think, that kind of speaks for itself. I come from a family of engineers. My dad was at Purdue and USC. My brother was at Georgia Tech. So like we're all over the place. It was really like difficult. I think the good thing about U of I and some of those schools is really just kind of thinking about like the world-class type element and like how transferable that is. I also talk about being in Texas, and Texas schools are big, but I wouldn't say it has the same effect when I was at Stanford. That's just me being my experience thus far. And then from a cost perspective, my experience was I had some scholarships, but I still had to think about tuition. The fact that I had a paid internship, and let me just be honest, it was a solid internship. I was using my summer money every year thereafter to pay for my housing. So like, you can also think about maybe what kind of opportunities they'll be able to get with paid internships and whatnot, and non-university related scholarships because of the nature of the school that they're at.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
But we want them to go to Illinois, Marco. So
What do you guys think of Wisconsin? Just and I'm wondering, Dr.
Solid school. Yeah, Wisconsin's a very good, it's a Big Ten school, and
Yeah.
and most Big Ten universities, they have big labs. So they're more engineering oriented rather than, detailed science oriented. And they generate engineers. So, Purdue, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa State, these are all, solid schools.
the best employee I've got right now went to Cleveland State, which is a little known school, and it's a tiny little urban school. It's a lot of it comes down to the student and what they take away and get out of it.
That's true.
And if I
Thank
would
you.
just say one thing, then at this point, if you're in such a dilemma, I think it kind of now starts to also come down to culture. So your kid, where they think they'll be able to thrive, where they resonate with, the atmosphere. Each university kind of has a culture on its own.
That's
and
an
so I
excellent
think that
point.
comes into point. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I know I visited the University of Michigan and University of Illinois, and actually I remember sitting down with Becky before I even I was admitted, but I didn't accept yet. I sat with Becky and she talked through the program, and it just felt like the right place with everyone I met, all the people that were able to help me beforehand, and all the resources that were available to me. And yeah, the combination of everything, it just seemed like the right decision. But yeah, I think culture and just the fit and what you're looking for, you have to figure out if they want to go to a big university. Obviously, there's a lot of opportunities. And the other nice thing about Illinois is if they decide they don't want to be in engineering, there's a lot of other good programs. I wasn't sure. I considered maybe I would want to go to business school, and I looked at going to Georgia Tech, and I thought maybe I was a little bit more limited because it was a very technical school. They do have a business program, but Illinois has a lot of really solid programs. So I think that's another thing to consider, just in case if your child didn't want to continue with engineering, there's a lot of other really good programs they could go into, get a really good degree, and hopefully a good job after that.
I didn't tell my father I turned down a paid scholarship at a different school to go to Illinois, and I don't think he knew ever.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the honest answers, and this has been extremely helpful. And you guys are
Thanks.
all really impressive.
Thanks
you.
for coming, Marco.
Thank you.
I'll add, although it kills me too, Wisconsin has a very good concrete canoe team.
What they do.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you everyone for coming. I put my contact information in the chat. Marco and anybody else that's on the call, if you guys leave and later tonight or down the road have another question that you would like answered, please feel free to email me. I have the entire panel's contact information. I can send that to them and have them respond. So don't feel like this is the last time that you have the opportunity to talk to us. We're here, we're available. Please don't hesitate to reach out. So thank you, everyone. Go Illini.
Before everybody goes, I think for some of the graduates, the alumni, I just want to show you that our campus looks a little different. And so the image behind me may look alien to you, but it's actually should be very familiar to you. On the left is Newmark, And on the right is the new hydro building. And now there's a bridge between them. And it's an instrumented smart bridge where students can collect data about vibrations and structural analyses and stuff like that. So campus is growing.
John, I saw the talk. It was incredibly impressive.
Oh, great.
Very, very
Excellent.
cool.
Yeah. And Dana, I have good news for you. On this ground floor, there will be a concrete canoe display.
Yeah.
And do you know which canoe they picked?
Because I
Best one.
also heard your talk last, and I messaged Keely and I said, "Ooh, which canoes did they choose?"
Corn cob.
I heard
John,
a rumor that Corncrete is being moved to the Hydro Systems
That's gonna be
Laboratory.
on display for everyone to see. Yeah.
John, Mott McDonald was going to ask if we could tunnel under the building to see what kind of response we get in the instruments, but I'll be calling you after to see if we can sort that out.
Sounds good to me.
All right.
No, but
everyone.
before we go, I'll add on to what John was saying. It is actually a really, really exciting time for the Civil Engineering Department at Illinois because it should be open in the fall, right? We have a brand new building.
We're open now. Yeah,
I'm sorry?
We're open now. We're teaching face-to-face classes now.
Excellent.
It's got new classrooms, it's got new offices, it has like areas where students can meet in groups, and that's not like the library. And it's an amazing facility. And I'm pretty jealous of the students that actually get to utilize it versus us alumni who just get to visit, maybe once a year. So that's actually something really exciting going on with the department right now.
Okay, thank you everyone so much. Everyone have a wonderful Easter weekend and continue to stay COVID safe. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks and good luck,
Thank you,
everybody.
See you guys.
Bye.